discuss before Pat and Erica join you after the midday news. We're talking at the moment about fracking. What is it? Why is it so controversial? I'd like to know from you if you think fracking could be good for Kent. When he was the Energy Minister, the Sevenoaks MP Michael Fallon told us that local communities could benefit by the tune of up to £10 million if shale gas or oil was successfully extracted in their area. Is that a bribe you'd quite like to get your hands on? 03459 811111. Now, our starting point today is the first approval for test drilling for fracking to see whether fracking can be possible. And this is, if it goes ahead, it will be the first fracking for 5 years in this country. It's going to happen in North Yorkshire, not Kent, but you heard Friends of the Earth a few minutes ago saying if it happens there, then you will see planning applications approved across the country, including here in Kent. How does that make you feel? Let's ask Julie Wassmer. Julie is from East Kent Against Fracking. Julie, good morning.
Good morning, Julia.
You will have been keeping a close eye, I think, on events in North Yorkshire. When the decision came through, what was your immediate reaction?
Well, campaigners really across the UK just believe that this is absolutely appalling, that in spite of the strength of public opposition to this plan, it's been pushed through by councillors who we believe are being told what to do by a government that's determined to support the fracking industry. I mean, let's not forget these plans were opposed by 15 parish councils, 5 town councils and Rydale District Council. 4,375 people objected to this.
But how many people live in North Yorkshire? Quite a few more than 4,000, I would think.
Yeah, but when you balance that against only 36 people who wrote in support, I think you can see where the passion in opposing this industry lies. I mean, you know, what we have here, yesterday, campaigners there launched a declaration, and that is to continue the fight against fracking, because the gas industry yesterday, Julia, described this as the first step in the right direction towards fracking, but we describe it as the first step towards the real war against fracking, and we will take every measure possible to fight this toxic industry.
Do you believe that it was a flawed planning decision, and do you have any evidence that it was a flawed planning decision, as opposed to you just thoroughly disapproving of fracking? Let's just focus on the planning decision, because there probably will be similar ones here in Kent at some point in the future.
Well, I think personally that the framework that these planning committees are allowed to look at is far too narrow. They are not allowed to look at the effects of fracking in America or Australia, everywhere that this industry has operated. It looks in the main, I mean, when we had the fracking applications rejected in Lancashire last summer, these were on issues of transport and noise, but the bigger issue surrounding fracking is really one of the danger to our environment and to public health, and I'm afraid these just aren't addressed at planning committees. And we also have...
But they can't be addressed at planning committees, can they? That is something that the regulators of the industries in this country need to address, surely.
Well, what we have here is an industry that campaigners would say is not properly regulated. Julie, you know, just yesterday, John Dewar of Third Energy, the company involved here, told the planning committee that if something cannot be done safely, it doesn't get done. Well, that's not good enough, because we had fracking in 2011, and it caused earthquakes, which it also affected, it caused distortion to the well, and that closed down fracking in this country. They don't know that it isn't safe until it becomes unsafe. And this, of course, you know, with Third Energy, this is a company that failed to report a gas leak to the regulator in November last year and caused 74,000 cubic metres of gas to leak. How can we possibly believe these companies when really they're in it to profit?
Okay, well, do you know what? Profit isn't necessarily a bad thing, is it? I mean, that's what makes the world go round, and it doesn't necessarily make you a liar just because you're looking to make money out of something.
What we have here is an industry that is aiming to profit, while we have to balance that against the risks to our environment, against public health. You know, I mean, we're not just a bunch of irrational eco-freaks. I sit on the Environment Committee of CPRE Kent, and our chairman is Graham Warren, he's a respected hydrogeologist who worked for the Environment Agency, one of the regulatory bodies for almost 30 years. I mean, this is an issue for North Yorks at the moment, but it is also an issue for the Weald. We fought successfully applications here in Kent in 2013, and those licences were withdrawn. But recently, Graham Warren made comments on the proposed policy and implications for the water resources of West Sussex from fracking. And he actually said that, no operations for the development of shale gas and oil should be permitted which entail injection of fluids under pressure into geological strata at any location where there's faulting or fracturing. Well, guess what, Julia? The whole of Europe is highly faulted, and you only have to look at the work of Professor David Smythe, the Emeritus Professor of Geophysics at Glasgow University, to read that. We cannot have... The people of this country have looked very closely at what's happened everywhere that fracking has taken place. That's not something that's on the table at North Yorkshire County Council, unfortunately, but here we have facades of democracy. Because when David Cameron came in, he came in as the champion of localism, and yet in Lancashire, where applications were democratically opposed last summer, Quadrilla, the company there, has appealed, but it is not the planning inspector who will be deciding that appeal. It will be the Secretary of State intervening. This is outrageous because we do not have a balanced long-term energy policy to meet globally agreed climate changes.
Well, you don't even know what Greg Clark's going to decide yet. I mean, until the 4th of July, we don't even know the time frame for his decision. Are you absolutely convinced that because he's part of a Conservative government that has in the past talked about going all out for shale, that he will put aside any other concerns and that he will allow the fracking to go ahead in Lancashire? Is that your conviction?
Our conviction is that this government has made it abundantly clear that they are behind fracking 100%, and shamefully they have withdrawn subsidies to renewables, to the renewable industry. They've backed, in my view, in our view, the wrong horse in the energy race, and they will stop at nothing to allow fracking to take place. You have to ask yourself, why is the planning inspector in Lancashire not being allowed to decide the Quadrilla appeal? Why does it take the intervention of the Secretary of State, Greg Clark?
Because, well, according to the government, because this is of national interest. It's of national significance, the debate over fracking.
Absolutely. And why is the planning inspector not qualified to deal with that?
Can I just go back to one point about the site in Yorkshire, Julie? When everyone got... when the news story began to gain traction in Balcombe, people were of the impression that fracking was taking place. No fracking ever happened there, and it's possible no fracking will ever happen in Yorkshire. They are testing the site. Until such time as they even know whether it is possible to get shale, oil or gas out of there, why oppose it?
The site at Balcombe was an exploratory site. This is a test frac here with plans for 9 years production, and it really does open the floodgates for fracking in Yorkshire. That's why this is so important, basically. I mean, people in North Yorkshire just cannot believe the committee has approved this application. They've effectively now opened the floodgates.
But this is a well that already existed. This isn't taking anyone by surprise. People will have been living near this already.
Yes, they have, and they've also testified, at the hearing, councillors heard for themselves how one resident had become ill and frightened because of the constant drilling of the well that had already taken place prior to Third Energy's intention to frack it. I think what we have to understand here is that there are more people in this country now opposed to fracking.
What's your evidence for that?
Pardon?
What's your evidence for that statement?
Polls. You've only got to look at the polls.
Quote me one recent poll that you would be confident to rely on.
I believe, well, I haven't got the evidence here at the moment, but I saw a poll last just before Christmas, which showed that only 22% of people, there were 22% of people that supported fracking as opposed to renewables.
We'll see if we can find some recent polls,
Okay.
Julie. I know I put you on the spot with that one.
Yeah, I just don't have the figures.
That's all right, we can find them.
That's
That's no problem at all. Julie, it's been really good talking with you this morning.
Not at all, and I would say that this hasn't changed. Like the Third Energy has backers, a big national bank, And we can exercise our consumer power here. This industry and the government mustn't believe that we've given up, because this really is just the first step in the war against fracking, and we're going to take it from now on.
Thank you, Julie. Good to have you on the show. Julie Wassmer from East Kent against fracking.